Welcome to the Woglakapi show of KOLC TV, part of Oglala Lakota College. My name is Tony Brave, and our special guest today is Everett Little Whiteman, a distinguished elder on the Oglala Nation Reservation. Today we are going to cover the topic of constitutional reform. It has been a hot topic as of lately, and we would like to get some insights from Mr. Everett Little Whiteman. Everett, can you tell us a little bit first about your family history and lineage?
Okay, my name is Everett Little Whiteman. I'm originally from Kyle, Medicine Root, South Dakota. I was born and raised there. I attended school in the Kyle Day School before the modern times. Pine Ridge High School before it became a three high school. So, and I joined the Public Safety Department, Public Safety Police Department early in my life when I first got married. And I made my career as law enforcement officer. And I'm not a politician, but I'm interested in how the politics work because we work with the politics all the time in law enforcement and judicial services. So I spent a lot of my time away from the Pine Ridge Reservation in my career, but I came back. I've always kept track of what's going on in Pine Ridge, on the Pine Ridge Reservation. And after I retired from everything, I came back and lived on the Pine Ridge Reservation.
Okay, who was your father and grandfather?
Pardon?
Who was your father and grandfather?
My father's name is Louis Little Whiteman. My mother's name is Betty Little Whiteman. My dad was born in 1898, and my mom was born in about 1901, and they're lifelong residents. My mom lived to be 99 years old, and we ranched and farmed in Kyle and Medicine Root most of my young life, and that's pretty much how I grew up. I grew up speaking Lakota. We all speak Lakota in our family. There's 11 of us in that family, and I still speak Lakota. I think it's fluent, but it's a little different today, but I speak Lakota.
Okay. I think back in those days, it was like sort of like the older language, and now the language has kind of changed a little bit, wouldn't you say?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, the way I grew up in Medicine Root and Kyle, we did a lot of ranching. My dad did a lot of ranching. I was a young boy, so I helped with horses and cows and doing the haying and stuff like that. Did a lot of work. I grew up working quite a bit. And they farmed a lot. We raised a lot of food, so we did a lot of farming. We didn't have any modern equipment. We did everything by manual labor, which was good for me. And I really loved my early life. I've always talked about that. If it wasn't for my ranching and farming life, I don't know what I would have been doing later on in my life. But my mom has always encouraged us to go to school. Make something of yourself, she said. So we never had an opportunity to go to school, but you guys have the opportunity. At my school age days, I didn't have that opportunity, but nowadays there are so much opportunities out there that it really grieves me when I hear people dropping out of school because they didn't want to go to school. I wish I had those opportunities when I was going to school. I had to work for part of my tuition and fees and stuff like that. And I worked hard when I was growing up. I worked hard when I was going to school, and I worked hard when I got married. So work has always been a part of my life. So now I'm retired.
Okay, why do you think the Constitution revision is so important to the Oglala Lakota?
Well, today the Oglala Sioux tribe is in modern times. The Constitution, as I recall, has been really outdated. Parts of it have been revised, but it's been since the 1930s or sometimes thereabouts, and it's existed. And I, for one, want to see the tribe improve and advance. And we can't do that with a constitution that's outdated. Really, nobody really pays attention to it, although that's kind of the law of the land for us to live according to what the Constitution requires. I want to see the tribal government improve, and that's why I think the Constitution is really important for the tribal government to improve.
Why does changing the Constitution have so much more lasting impact than changing tribal ordinances?
Yeah, the ordinances are laws, and the Constitution is the law. But you can always amend the laws and change the laws almost every time. It takes quite a bit to change the Constitution. It takes the people as a whole to change the Constitution. So when we talk about the tribal Constitution, we have to know what we're talking about. We have to know what we need or what we want in order to make the changes in the Constitution, because that forms our government. And that's how our government operates. And it's important to us as people, as the Lakota people, because even though we want to live with our history, we still have to keep up with the modern times as well. So.
Okay, the Oglala Sioux Tribe Constitution Reform Task Force has been going out to the districts. Do you see this beneficial in the education of the people?
I think it's important that they're doing that. They're going out and trying to get the feedback from the tribes. I, for one, really appreciate Jackie Sears for taking the initiative to run with the Tribal Reform Act. And I think there's a couple of council people that are on that task force. And they took the initiative to get the task and make sure that people are aware of what they're doing. What surprises me is that the people simply don't attend these meetings. I've attended a couple of them, and there's only about anywhere from 12 to 20 people sitting in the room representing a couple thousand people. That really bothers me. I think the people, our people, have to really become interested in our form of government and make sure our form of government is doing what they're supposed to be doing for our people. We have to improve. There's so many issues on this Pine Ridge Reservation that the tribal government has to improve, and this Constitutional Reform Task Force is the beginning. I hope the people really take that and understand that the constitutional reform is for our future, not for the present sitting council people, but 10 years from now or 20 years from now, we can look back and say, hey, I'm glad you guys did this constitutional reform because we made a lot of improvements. We saw a lot of improvements.
Okay, in today's world, with all the social mediums on the internet, such as Facebook and Twitter, there has been critics of this project. Some critics say the Constitution takes away from the treaties. How do you see the Constitution support the treaties?
Well, the treaties are made. They're the law of the land, as the United States Supreme Court says, and it's not changeable readily. The Constitution we can't change. The people can change and make the amendments as we see fit for our needs. Treaties, we can't do that. We have to go to Congress and make some changes. That's the big difference. The treaties are the law of the land. The constitutions are laws, but we can make changes as we go.
Okay, at this time, we're going to take a little short break, and we'll be right back with this interview. Welcome back to the Woglakapi show. Once again, I'd like to tell you thank you for viewing this episode. And we have Everett Little Whiteman here with us today, and we're covering the topic Constitution reform or revision. Everett, what are your thoughts on the current OST Constitution?
Well, like I said earlier, I spent a lot of my time away from this reservation, but I work with tribal governments in different places around the country, and I kept track of what's going on in Pine Ridge. I know we operate with an old constitution that really needs to be amended, or we made some adjustments early during the times during my absences, but I think with the way the tribal government is operating, we really need to do the reform to make sure that the tribal government improves as well. That's one of the reasons why we're trying to improve the Constitution. And like I said, I really appreciate Jackie Sears for taking the initiative to do that. It's a big job, and it's an important job. And I'm really surprised that it took this long to do that, because it's so important. It forms our government.
Okay, would you like to expound on any other avenues about the Constitution?
Yes, I attended some meetings for the tribal constitutional reform, and some of the subject matters that they talked about, the people presented. The biggest one that I think was the separation of powers. Now, the separation of powers, as I understand, the people have mandated that several years ago for the tribe to initiate that. Some tribal council people said, well, we got the separation of powers, but for some reason it's never been enforced and it's not in effect. I hate to see, I'm from law enforcement as well, so I hate to see the tribe hiring and firing judges almost at will. It shouldn't be that way. It looks like the judges are afraid to make decisions now because they don't want to be removed from that position. And I think that separation of powers is really important, to remove that judicial services away from the tribal council's hands to do what they wish on their personal whims, and removing them almost at will. We don't have very many qualified people interested in being a judge for some reason. And that's one of the ways to improve that system, is to make sure that separation of powers is working. The chairman, the elected chairman, is at large, reservation-wide, and the vice chairman is elected at reservation-wide. But they don't have that authority over the council either. And I'd like to see that changed. The tribal chairman must or should have veto power over the tribal council actions for things that he doesn't approve of. Travel is a big thing right now. I know there's a certain amount of travel that needs to be done by the tribal chairman, and maybe some of the council people at the request of the chairman, but they shouldn't be traveling so much. The issues are right here on the Pine Ridge Reservation. The only way we can get the tribal government to address these issues is to be here to address them. They're not in Washington. We have telephones, and we have, like you said, internet that we could use to communicate with people. And we could do that. And there's a lot of tribal program people that can do those types of work on behalf of the tribal council as well, rather than traveling, spending all that money on traveling. That money could be used for other things here on this reservation. And I'd like to see that as a separation of powers, that the chairman has authority over the council to really tighten up the budget and make sure that the budget is used for some constructive purposes for this reservation.
Okay, why is it important for the people to get involved with constitutional reform?
Well, if the people are not interested in our tribal government or in our constitution, the government is not going to change. We will not see the improvements that we need, that we've been talking about. I, for one, have mentioned a good part of my life since I came back. I came back in Pine Ridge in 1999, 2008 again, and I talked about the fire department, for example. Said, we got all these houses, we got all these structures, but we have no fire department to fight fires, a structural fire department. That fire department can't employ a lot of people, and we have a lack of employment. And I've always heard people say, this is the poorest Indian reservation in the country. I've heard that for so many years. It really doesn't make any sense. What are we doing about that? How are we trying to change that condition so we're not the poorest Indian reservation in the country? We could do something about it, and I'm sure people in Washington are saying those things. And I'd like to get our own people started on that. They need to be interested in our government so they can make those types of changes. We're all involved, whether we like it or not. Everything the council does, we become involved one way or the other.
Okay. To continue maybe on a little bit of that, how might our lives be improved by a new constitution? How might our lives be improved with a new constitution?
Well, one of the things that we talked about is the qualifications for the council people, because our education in the modern world is so important. Working with the state government, working with the federal government, these people are highly educated people, lawyers, accountants, and professional people. Our people have to be professional in order to meet those types of qualifications to negotiate improvements for our reservation. If we don't have that type of people involved, then we're not going to make any gains. And I see qualifications as an important part of our tribal government. We recommended a minimum of at least an AA degree for a tribal chairman and vice chairman, maybe members of the executive council. We recommended a minimum of AA degrees for the tribal council candidates. It's just like any other position that on the reservation. If they want to be interested in that job, they need to qualify themselves. I did, for my own sake, if I may mention that, I prepared myself for my career by going training, going to education, and stuff like that, because one day I want to be a chief of police. And so early on in my career, I prepared myself. And these people can do the same thing. It doesn't take that much to do that. It's just a lot of effort, a lot of hard work. But like I said, there are so much opportunities here that we can do that. We have a college center in every district. And to me, there's really no reason why we can't hire a better educated people to become our leaders. We look to these people as our leaders, and so we need to respect them. They need to respect themselves. That's where we got to start, and that's Constitution. Make that requirement. That type of requirements is going to be seeing some improvements.
Okay, in just my personal opinion, I feel education is important, but also, there's the elders out there that didn't get a chance to go for an education, and they have a wealth of knowledge themselves. So it's kind of like we play this game, education experience, knowledge. So it's kind of like, how do we meld all that together so we're not shoving them aside, the elders? How do you think we can alleviate that issue if it is to arise?
Well, we all have minds. We all know how to work our minds, and in order to be really effective, we need to know how to think. We know how to analyze problems, and by having that education, it helps you makes you think better. You could go to training and you can learn about your job, how to do your job properly, better, to better yourself as an individual. You're trying to help these people by doing the job that you're doing. And that's the main thing. By gaining experience as well, and having an education, having a training, and having experience, all work together to make you a better person and make you a better leader. People respect you for what you do. You earn that respect. You don't get that respect just because you're sitting around doing nothing one day, and then you become elected as a council people, for example. You got to earn that respect, and we've heard that time and time again. And I really believe that we can improve our council by making the requirements for including education. And like I said, we've got a college center in every district, so getting that education is not that difficult. And we have all kinds of laws and loans and grants that's available for people to get so they can go to college and get themselves improved. And one other thing, if I may say, that we've talked about is that we've got the college center in every district, yet the college center and our tribal government are not working together to try to create some opportunities. So why is that? So we have a lot of problems that we're not addressing these problems. At least I don't see it, because nothing is really written about it. And we really don't hear any reports from the council because of that. And so we really don't know what the progress is. And that's what the Constitution is all about as well. We need to see some progress on the part of the tribal government and the members of the tribal government. So we brought out those questions. How come the tribal council people and the Woglakapi College are not working together to create some opportunities? We have people graduating all the time, but there's no opportunity here for them. So as a result, they leave Pine Ridge, and then when they leave Pine Ridge, they're no longer involved in our events. And then we complain about that too. So in order for everything to be involved, these people have to become involved with our way our tribal government operates. Maintain an interest in our people, see where our people are. Why are they working in New Mexico when they can be working at Pine Ridge, helping our people? I graduated from high school way back in 1960. And at the time, the tribal chairman gave an address to our graduating class, and he said, "Go to college, get an education, come back and help our people." Well, I went to college, I graduated, I came back, and I didn't get that respect, I didn't get that encouragement, so I left to follow my career. And I talked to my people about that, said, don't forsake yourself, help yourself. It's not easy, but it's not that hard either. Once you put your mind to it, you'll never regret it once you get that degree. And that holds true with our tribal government representatives.
I think, in today's world, especially with the younger generation, there is so much social media in front of them that they forget to look inside or on the reservation and become knowledgeable about your tribal histories, the treaties, etc. I was told the joke the other day. Man, this guy said, "Yeah, geez, I got brothers. They went off, got doctorate degrees, and his sister, just barely did a high school education, and she started a store, and that store has been running for 40 years." And he said, "But my brothers, with all this education, they just didn't use it, and didn't use it well, and they didn't learn how to use it." And so it's kind of like, I think today's world, a lot of people are looking at the social media and not just looking at their people. Okay.
Yeah. Can I make a statement
Sure.
from what you said? The first came back after I retired from the government in law enforcement. I got invited by our tribal chairman at the time and the BIA superintendent at the time to help take a look at our public safety program. Yeah, we did. I worked with a group of people from the reservation, and we reorganized and initiated OST public safety as we see it now. At the time, we have a director instead of a chief of police. The director works above the supervisor, chief of police. We have a bunch of administrative assistants, if you will, to help supervise the program, because that program, the police department, the criminal investigations, and the corrections combined represents about $10 million or maybe a little bit more. And so we got to have trained and educated people to do that, experienced people. And that's what we did. We organized to that. And one of the first things that I've heard that really bothered me at the time was somebody make a statement, say, don't hire smart people because they're going to make you look bad. I say, well, that's kind of a different attitude that I have, a different opinion that I have. I said, you hire good people to make you look good instead of the opposite. So that used to be the opinion of some people who are mid-management people. I hope that changed now, but this is one of the things that we're trying to change with our tribal government as well.
With your perspective, do you think the Constitution reform is mainly about providing what's known as home rule?
I think it does. I think the tribal constitution reform will really indicate that our tribal government needs to improve. And that's a way of the people talking and telling the government, you really need to improve your operations by complying with the constitutional requirements. And I think by putting the language in there, the proper language into the Constitution, we can see some improvements for the reservation, the way our tribal government operates.
Do you think the youth voice on the Constitution needs to be heard, and why?
Well, it's important for the youth to become involved because they're not going to remain youths forever. They're going to become the leaders of the future. If they're in high school now, juniors and seniors in high school, in 4 years or sometimes thereabouts, they may become leaders of our involved in our Constitution. So that's why they need to acquaint themselves with it. How our tribal Constitution is reorganized and worded. It's important.
Okay. In closing, what are your thoughts to get people engaged in the constitutional reform?
I think we need to tell the people that the way that our tribal government, the federal government is operating now. Our president, if I may say so, the current president of the United States has indicated, or is supposed to have indicated, as I understand through the grapevine, that he is going to concentrate on Indian reservations to get rid of the Indian reservations, to make them assimilate with the rest of the United States. By doing that, he's going to have to abolish the treaties and whatnot. I'm not really sure how the Congress sees that. They really have not done anything to put a stop to a lot of what President Trump is doing. And I'm afraid of that. I'm afraid for my people for that. For that reason, the youth and the older people and the people in tribal government must get involved with our Constitution to help improve our form of government, to combat anything that goes against losing our land, losing our way of life. Because our way of life is history. We have a long history. We have a valuable history. The cultural things. A lot of people in America don't have that. They have their own cultural things because our land is made up of immigrants. People tend to forget that. They're trying to send away people back like the Indians. They said, we're going to send the Indians back to India, meaning us. They're thinking we're from India, but this is our land. We've been here a long time for it. We need to have our youth people understand that, teaching the American history, the American Indian history in our schools on this reservation so that they can learn that. It's an important part of our history. Our federal Constitution is patterned after the Iroquois Indians of New York. So that is important for them to understand that we have the American government that really looks to the American Indians for some guidance to learn how to do things. So we can't stop there, and by educating ourselves, by improving ourselves, we can do better. We can keep on educating our people. And that's why the Constitution reform is really important. People like me I'm 77 years old, so I really don't have that much time left on this earth. So what I'm trying to do is behoove our young people to become involved so they can keep this reservation and they can improve life on this reservation. They can improve the job, create some jobs, create a lot of things to improve ourselves, and we can do it.
Okay, I'd like to thank you today, Everett, for coming and sharing your thoughts with myself and the people out there in our viewing audience. And I'd like to tell the people out there, get involved. Get off that computer, and get involved with your local government here. There's a lot involved here. As Everett was saying, this could be our treaty gone by the wayside and other things. Just don't be waiting for handouts. Go out there and learn what's happening out there, how we can improve it, how we can improve the government. It's up to you. Do it. Doksha Ake.